Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into this paper called Spirituality for the Common Man by Prem Kamble.
Oh yeah, I've heard of this one.
Have you?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, he's got this really interesting idea about making spirituality like more accessible by using like scientific concepts and analogies.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, what if we could actually like measure feelings the same way we measure distance?
Right.
You know? Could there be a science of the mind that's just as precise as physics is? So I'm really excited to kind of unpack this with you and see what kind of insights we can uncover.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
This model that Campbell proposes, it's called the Prem Spirituality Model.
Okay.
It attempts to bridge this gap between spirituality and science.
Totally. Yeah. And that gap can feel pretty wide sometimes.
For sure.
So let's just dive right into some of the key ideas in the paper.
Okay.
Campbell starts off by talking about, all the unrest and the violence we see in the world.
Right.
And he kind of suggests that spirituality could be the antidote.
Interesting.
But then he also points out that a lot of people find spirituality kind of confusing or even intimidating,
Yeah, yeah.
And he seems to think that a more straightforward, almost like scientific definition of spirituality might help with that.
I see. Yeah, he really argues for a definition that resonates with everyone, regardless of their background or their beliefs. And this clarity, he believes, is essential for what he calls the spiritual revolution. Okay, a revolution. I'm intrigued, but I need a little more context here.
True.
What exactly does he mean by this spiritual revolution? Well, he compares it to the industrial and information revolutions.
Okay.
Those were obviously fueled by breakthroughs in material science.
Right.
But this revolution, he says, this would be driven by advances in understanding the mind itself, what he calls mind science or spiritual science.
Okay, so instead of focusing on like technology or material goods, this revolution is about understanding like our inner world.
Exactly.
Our thoughts and feelings, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and he actually suggests that this understanding could be just as transformative for society as any technological advancement.
Wow. Okay, now I'm starting to see where this is going.
Yeah.
The paper talks about this idea of mental space, where our feelings act like coordinates, almost like a map of our inner landscape. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, he draws a parallel with physical space. Just like we have coordinates, latitude, longitude, to pinpoint our location in physical space.
Right.
Campbell proposes that our feelings, things like love, hope, faith, these serve as coordinates in this mental space.
Okay, that's a pretty cool analogy.
It is.
But how does that tie into the idea of a spiritual revolution, though?
Well, he suggests that higher levels of positive feelings actually correspond to higher energy states within this mental space.
Okay.
He even goes as far as to suggest the existence of what he calls God zones.
God zones. That sounds a little out there.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Is he implying that like Buddha was some kind of superhuman being or something?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
He uses that term God zones to represent the highest levels of mental energy, within this framework. Think of it this way, just like objects in physical space have potential energy based on their position.
Okay.
We have what you might call mental energy based on our position in this mental space. So he's proposing that Buddha, through cultivating these incredibly positive feelings, achieved an incredibly high mental energy state.
Okay, so it's not about like supernatural powers, but about mastering our internal state,
right,
our feelings, to reach these higher levels of mental energy.
Precisely. And this mastery, according to Campbell, is the key to unlocking the potential of this spiritual revolution.
I'm already starting to see how this model could be helpful.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking of spirituality as something vague or mystical,
right,
it provides a more concrete, like, framework.
Right.
But what about traditional religion? Where does that fit into all of this?
Well, Campbell attempts to separate spirituality from organized religion in his model.
Okay.
He proposes that spirituality is an inherent quality within all individuals, regardless of their religious beliefs.
So it's not about following a specific, like, dogma or set of rituals,
right,
but about cultivating these positive feelings, these higher energy states within ourselves.
Yes, he argues that this is something everyone has the potential to do,
right,
regardless of their background.
So then what about enlightenment? How does Campbell's model address that concept?
Right. Well, we often think of enlightenment as this sudden moment.
Right. Yeah, like an aha moment.
Exactly. A profound insight.
Yeah.
But Kamble, he suggests that enlightened individuals, like Buddha, may have actually achieved an understanding of what he calls the spiritual laws of the universe.
Spiritual laws. Is he talking about some kind of cosmic rule book for the mind?
Essentially, yes. He believes that just as the physical world operates according to, the laws of physics,
right,
there are also specific laws governing the mental or spiritual realm.
Mm.
And figures like Buddha, he argues, may have reached a level of understanding that allowed them to perceive and utilize these laws in ways that most of us can't even fathom.
That's a pretty mind-blowing concept.
It is.
But if these spiritual laws exist, why don't they seem to work for everyone?
Right.
Why isn't everyone walking around enlightened?
That's a great question.
If it's just about following some cosmic rule.
Yeah, and Kamble, he addresses this directly.
Okay.
He suggests that our lack of understanding and control over our own mental states, our position in the mental space, this hinders our ability to consistently apply these laws.
I see.
He uses the example of Gandhi, who he believes succeeded because he operated from a higher mental energy state, achieved through unwavering faith in his chosen path.
So it's not that the laws are flawed, but that we're often operating on like a lower frequency, so to speak.
Exactly.
Which makes accessing and utilizing these laws, inconsistent.
Yeah, it goes back to that idea of mastering our internal state. Our position in the mental space.
All right, so we've got this mental space, these God zones, and these spiritual laws.
Right.
And Kamble believes that understanding all of this is key to this spiritual revolution. Mm-hmm. But what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, he envisions a future where we develop scientific methods to navigate this mental space and achieve those higher spiritual states more intentionally and effectively. He even proposes the idea of spiritual clinics.
Spiritual clinics. That sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But, remember, so did the idea of flying a few centuries ago.
That's true, that's true.
What Kamble is getting at is that if we can approach spirituality with a more scientific lens, the possibilities for human potential and self-mastery could be extraordinary.
This is all so fascinating. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But I still have so many questions.
Of course.
Like Kamble mentioned this new language he's proposing, Mentomatics.
Yes.
What's that all about, and how does it tie into the model?
Right. Well, he argues that we need a new language to understand and quantify the laws governing the spiritual realm.
Okay.
Just like mathematics is the language of the physical world.
I see. So if we could measure feelings as precisely as we measure like distance or time,
exactly,
we could potentially unlock a whole new level of understanding about the mind.
Precisely. And Kamble believes the key to developing this mentomatics lies in our ability to measure those feelings, the coordinates of the mental space. Mm-hmm. He argues that once we can quantify them, we can start to map out this space more precisely, understand its laws, and ultimately develop a science of the mind as robust as physics.
Wow, that's a pretty bold idea. But measuring feelings seems like a monumental task.
It does.
Why does he think this is so crucial to the spiritual revolution?
Well, he draws a parallel with the development of math and physics.
Okay.
He reminds us that before we could measure distances, we were largely ignorant of the laws governing the physical world.
Right.
It was only through developing mathematics that we could quantify those laws and begin to understand and predict physical phenomena.
So we're sort of in a pre-Mentomatics era.
I like that.
When it comes to understanding the mind, we have some general ideas and spiritual practices, but we lack the precise language and tools to truly map out and navigate this inner world.
Exactly. And Kamble believes that the discovery of Mentomatics could usher in a whole new era of scientific exploration in the spiritual realm. Imagine being able to study spiritual phenomena in a laboratory.
Wow.
Replicating spiritual experiences with the same precision as physics experiments today.
Yeah, that would certainly revolutionize our understanding of spirituality.
It would.
But in the meantime, how does he suggest we approach spirituality given our current, limitations?
Right. Well, he acknowledges those limitations.
Yeah.
But remains optimistic about the future.
Okay.
He encourages us to think outside the traditional boundaries of religion and consider a more scientific approach.
Okay.
He also emphasizes personal exploration. Each individual, he argues, can contribute to the development of this spiritual science.
Yeah.
It's not just about waiting for some big scientific breakthrough,
Right.
but about actively engaging with our own spirituality and seeking to understand our own minds.
I love that. It's a call to action for all of us to become active participants in this spiritual revolution.
Exactly.
Not just passive observers.
It's about recognizing that we all have the potential to uncover insights and contribute to this new understanding of the mind.
This is all so incredibly thought-provoking.
It is.
We've covered a lot of ground from mental space and God zones to spiritual laws. And this fascinating concept of mentomatics.
Yes.
But how does Kamble tie all of this back to the idea of world peace, which he mentioned at the beginning? How does this model actually promote peace? We'll dive deeper into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. So Kamble, he argues that the model promotes peace in a couple of interesting ways.
Okay.
The first is by offering a new framework for understanding spirituality.
Okay.
One that's rooted in science and, observable phenomena rather than faith or dogma.
So instead of getting bogged down in arguments about whose belief system is correct, we can focus on these universal principles of the mind.
Exactly.
That, theoretically everything could agree on.
Right. And the second point Kamble makes is that the model emphasizes the importance of achieving that high energy state of mind we talked about.
Right. Residing in those higher regions of the mental space.
Yeah. So rather than focusing on the differences between religions, we should focus on that shared goal of achieving a higher state of consciousness. He uses the analogy of reaching a mountaintop. There are many paths you can take, right?
Yeah.
But the destination is the same.
Right.
He suggests that all religions at their core are simply different methods for achieving that same spiritual evolution.
It's a really compelling idea.
It is.
Imagine a world where religions, instead of dividing us, become sources of unity and collaboration.
Right.
All working towards that same shared goal.
Exactly. And Kamble believes that this shift in perspective could drastically reduce conflict and promote peace. He even suggests that future generations might look back on our current religious conflicts with amusement.
Wow.
Much like we view those who believed the earth was flat.
It's certainly a hopeful vision.
It is.
But let's shift gears for a second. I'm still curious about this Mentomatics concept.
Yeah.
We talked about how it could revolutionize our understanding of the mind. But can you give us some concrete examples of how it might work in practice?
Sure. Kamble suggests that if we can develop tools to precisely measure feelings, we could start to map the mental space in a more quantifiable way.
Okay.
Imagine, for instance, being able to assign numerical values to feelings like love, hope, or fear.
So instead of just saying, I feel happy, you could say, I'm experiencing 8.5 units of joy or something.
Exactly. And then you could start to study how different actions, thoughts, or experiences influence those measurements. How does meditation impact your joy units?
Right.
What about spending time in nature?
Yeah.
Or listening to certain types of music?
Wow, that would open up a whole new world of research and understanding.
It would.
We could actually study the impact of our choices and actions on our mental states with scientific precision.
Right.
But let's go back to Kamble's idea of spiritual clinics for a minute.
Okay.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around that concept.
Sure, it's definitely a radical idea. He imagines a future where people could go to these clinics to receive guidance on how to achieve specific mental states.
Okay.
Think of it like a doctor prescribing medicine.
Right.
But instead, they're prescribing practices or techniques to help you reach a desired level of mental energy.
So say someone is struggling with anxiety.
Yeah.
Instead of prescribing medication, a spiritual clinician might recommend specific meditation techniques or mindfulness practices
Exactly.
to help them kind of shift their mental state.
Precisely. Or imagine someone who wants to cultivate more compassion or creativity.
Okay.
These clinics could offer personalized guidance based on a scientific understanding of the mental space and how to navigate it effectively.
It's a really intriguing idea.
It is.
But I have to admit, it also raises some questions for me.
Okay.
For instance, how do we ensure that this knowledge, this ability to potentially manipulate mental states isn't misused?
Okay.
Could it be used to control people or exploit them in some way?
Those are valid concerns, and ones that Kamble acknowledges in his paper. Right. He stresses the importance of developing this spiritual science responsibly and ethically. Mm-hmm. He argues that education and open dialogue will be crucial to ensure that this knowledge is used for the betterment of humanity, not for harm.
That makes sense. It's like any powerful technology.
It is.
It can be used for good or for ill.
Right.
And it's up to us to ensure that it's used wisely.
Exactly. He believes that by approaching this new frontier of knowledge with wisdom and compassion, we can harness its power to create a more peaceful and fulfilling world for everyone.
Okay, so we've talked about the spiritual revolution, Mentomatics, and these futuristic spiritual clinics.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, what about the here and now?
Sure.
What can we as individuals do with this knowledge today?
Well, Kamble encourages us to start by becoming more aware of our own internal states. He emphasizes the importance of paying attention to our thoughts and feelings, recognizing how they influence our actions and experiences.
So it's about cultivating that self-awareness.
Yes.
Becoming more mindful of our own, mental space.
Right.
Even if we can't measure it precisely yet.
Exactly. He suggests that by becoming more conscious of our internal landscape, we can start to make choices that lead to greater well-being and fulfillment, even without the advanced tools of Mentomatics or spiritual clinics.
I love that. It's empowering to think that we don't have to wait for some future revolution.
Right.
To start taking charge of our own mental and spiritual well-being.
Exactly. Even simple practices like meditation, gratitude exercises, or spending time in nature can have a profound impact on our mental states. Mm-hmm. By incorporating these practices into our lives, we can start to navigate our own mental space more intentionally and move towards those higher energy states, those God zones that Kamble talks about.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's not about some like magical transformation.
Right.
But about making conscious choices that align with our values and aspirations.
Yes.
Those positive feelings that create a higher energy state within us.
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility for our own inner growth and evolution. Recognizing that we all have the potential to become architects of our own mental and spiritual well-being.
This has been such a fascinating and thought-provoking discussion.
It has.
Kamble's ideas are certainly challenging.
They are.
But they offer a fresh perspective on spirituality and its potential role in creating a more peaceful and harmonious world.
He invites us to question our assumptions, to consider the possibility that our understanding of the mind and its capabilities is still in its infancy.
And he leaves us with a sense of optimism, a belief that by embracing this new frontier of knowledge, we can unlock extraordinary possibilities for individual and collective transformation.
He argues that this spiritual revolution, fueled by advancements in mind science and potentially even Mentomatics, could be the key to creating a world where peace, compassion, and understanding prevail.
It's certainly a vision worth striving for.
It is.
But before we get swept away by the possibilities of the future, I want to bring us back to the present for a minute.
Sure.
Kamble mentions a rather provocative concept in his paper.
Okay.
This idea that figures like Gandhi may have tapped into these spiritual laws of the universe to achieve their goals.
Yeah.
How does he explain that, and what does it mean for the rest of us? We'll explore that and more in the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we left off talking about Gandhi and these figures who might have been able to tap into those spiritual laws of the universe.
Right. Yeah, it's a pretty big claim.
It is. Can you unpack that a little bit more for us?
Sure. So Kamble suggests that individuals like Gandhi who achieve these remarkable things, despite seemingly insurmountable obstacles, may have intuitively understood and applied these spiritual laws in a way that amplified their actions.
So it's not that they had superpowers.
No.
But rather they had a deep understanding of these principles governing the mind.
Yes.
Which allowed them to be more effective.
Exactly. Kamble argues that Gandhi's unwavering faith in his approach, his commitment to nonviolence, created this powerful mental state, a position in the mental space that allowed him to tap into these spiritual laws and create extraordinary change.
That's a fascinating concept.
It is.
It makes you wonder, Like, if we could all achieve similar results, if we understood and applied these laws more consciously.
That's the exciting possibility that Kamble's model presents, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we can develop a deeper understanding of these spiritual laws through, research and experimentation, perhaps we can all learn to utilize them more effectively.
Right. It's like learning the rules of a game.
Exactly.
Once you understand the rules, you can play more strategically.
Right.
And increase your chances of winning.
That's a great analogy.
Kamble believes that by understanding the rules of the mental space, the spiritual laws that govern our inner world, we can become more effective agents of change, both in our own lives and in the world around us.
Absolutely.
But let's be honest, some people might be, skeptical about all this.
Sure.
It's one thing to talk about mental space and spiritual laws.
Right.
But how do we know this isn't just some elaborate philosophical theory?
Yeah. Is there any evidence to support these claims?
Exactly.
Well, Kamble acknowledges that much of this is still theoretical.
Okay.
He emphasizes the need for rigorous scientific investigation, especially when it comes to developing mentomatics and mapping mental space.
So he's not claiming to have all the answers, but rather inviting us to kind of join him in exploring these ideas and seeking evidence.
Exactly. He sees his model as a starting point, a framework for asking the right questions, and conducting research that could potentially revolutionize our understanding of the mind and its capabilities.
And he also encourages individuals to, explore these concepts in their own lives.
Absolutely.
To become like active participants in this search for understanding.
He believes that personal experimentation and exploration are essential.
Right.
Each individual's experience can contribute valuable insights to this emerging field of spiritual science.
So it's not just about waiting for scientists to figure it all out, but about each of us taking an active role in exploring our own inner world and how it interacts with the world around us.
He suggests that by paying close attention to our thoughts, feelings, and actions, we can start to discern patterns and principles that might point towards these spiritual laws in action.
So even if we don't have, sophisticated measurement tools or access to spiritual clinics, we can still start to investigate these ideas in our own lives through mindful observation and self-reflection.
Exactly. And who knows? Maybe those personal insights will contribute to the development of, mentomatics or other scientific breakthroughs in the future.
This deep dive has been such a fascinating journey.
It has.
Filled with thought-provoking concepts and mind-bending possibilities.
Lots to think about.
We've explored a truly unique model of spirituality, one that dares to bridge the gap between science and the mystical, and invites us to reimagine the potential of the human mind.
Kamble's model is both challenging and inspiring.
It is.
It challenges us to question our assumptions about the nature of reality and to consider that our current understanding of the mind is just the tip of the iceberg.
And it inspires us to think about the extraordinary possibilities that might unfold if we can truly unlock the secrets of the mental space. And learn to navigate it with wisdom and skill.
He leaves us with a sense of wonder and a call to action, inviting us to become explorers of our own inner worlds and pioneers in this new frontier of human understanding.
This has been an incredible exploration of Kamble's model.
It really has.
We've covered mental space, God zones, spiritual laws, this fascinating concept of mentomatics.
Right.
All pointing towards this possibility of a spiritual revolution that could transform our world.
Yeah, a lot to ponder.
But as we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with one final thought.
Okay.
If feelings could one day be measured and manipulated as precisely as physical quantities, what would that mean for our understanding of human potential?
Yeah.
The nature of consciousness.
Right.
And perhaps even the very fabric of reality itself.
That is the question.
That's something to ponder as you continue your own journey of exploration and discovery.